Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, movement is such an underrated element of performance, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more, in a light and in a conversational fashion. And, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go on a limb and assume that you do, because you're listening. And if you are, please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. Plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the TikTok, the Threads, the Blue Sky. I'm losing track, but we're in the seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it all that much more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us that ultimate kindness, come on by and pay us a visit. It's more Emmy consideration time on this episode as we're going over to our friends at Prime Video and looking at the show Etoile, which we had a lot of fun with. It's a great show. I don't think it got renewed, but it was a fun show. But I mean, it's the story of two ballet companies, one in New York, one in Paris, and they have to sort of make talent swaps to survive, and it's a lot of fun. There's great energy to it. It's kind of hilarious, but it's artistic and it's really well done as well. It's from the creators of Mrs. Maisel, the Marvelous Mrs Maisel, and we had the chance to sit down with the choreographer of the show, the one and only Marguerite Derricks, to talk about just working on a show like this and movement and dance and how it plays into the moving image and all that sort of fun stuff, and talked a little bit about previous jobs as well. And she did the stripper movies. Yep, she was the choreographer for both Showgirls and Striptease. We got a little insight there too, but it was a lot of fun. But like I said, if you're looking for something to watch, go to Prime, watch Etoile. Prove the world wrong that Prime didn't renew it, especially on the brink of the Emmys when people are voting. And I hope Margaret gets a nod for her work here on Etoile, because she does a good job. But like I said, watch Etoile on Prime Video, but first enjoy our talk with Marguerite Derricks, the choreographer of the show, because it's a darn good one. All right. Well, I mean, Marguerite, obviously, first off, just thank you so much for the time today. I really do appreciate this. And I mean,
Oh,
congrats on your work on the show.
thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I guess my first question is, I'm always curious, sort of the early days of something, because I mean, obviously, there's a relationship from Mrs. Maisel to this, but I mean, I guess walk me through the early days of being pitched about being involved with Etoile.
The first time Amy, we were we were in season 4 of Maisel actually, and we did 5 seasons. But I just remember we were in the Wolford Club. That was a season where we did all the burlesque stuff. And I was standing at the back of the Wolford Club. We were shooting something on stage, and Amy kind of like whispered in my ear, "I got a project I want to talk to you about, Paris and ballet." Is all I remember. And I was like, yeah, I'm so into it. And then she brought it up again at the wrap party for that season. And she was like, I really, want you to be involved in the show. We're going to still, like, we were still doing Maisel, but I need you on this new show. And I'm like, whatever you want, I'm there. And then she sent me a couple months later, she sent me a text message and she said, I want you to be a producer on the show, and produce all things dance. And I was just like beside myself because that was something I really wanted to do. So I kind of knew. And then it was like a year later that we kind of got started. So I knew it was coming, and it was just about when. And literally, we wrapped the last season of Maisel the next day. I started casting for Etoile in New York. So
Love,
I got right into it.
love
Yeah.
it, love
Yeah.
it. No, I mean, to me, just the nature of the show feels like it's a very sort of subtle collision of styles. And I mean, when you're putting something like this together, how sort of, I mean, I'm looking for the right word to say this, but I mean, I almost feel like you have to go into the nerd minutia of sort of the differences of dance style between, say, New York and Paris when it comes to these ballet companies. Like, how sort of deep dive do you do into something like this?
I love the way you said that. What did you say? A collision of styles. I
Yeah,
love that was for me, that was the most necessary thing to do is because people that don't know ballet, they think ballet out, they think Swan Lake.
right, of
And
course, yeah.
yeah, and we have a weird Swan Lake in our show too. So it was really about balancing that, like, because we were obviously in the script was written several, Swan Lake, Giselle, La Sophie. We had the classes written in there, and then for me, the collision came with the stuff I got to do for Gideon Glick as Tobias.
Mm.
To have this like young, outside the box kind of choreographer that gets shifted to Paris. So he was going somewhere where, I remember when I first started casting in Paris, they talked about the dancers being softer and, there was just the New York was more aggressive and more athletic, and Paris was more classic and soft. And um, so bringing the outside the box thinker to Paris with those dancers, that was fun. I was living the show in the creation, because I was bringing this kind of choreography to my European dancers, and they loved it. But the first time I did a Tobias number with them, the girls came in the next day and they couldn't walk because they were using muscles they hadn't really been using. So it was fun, and it was fun to really show like a wide range of ballet. And so Tobias really let me turn them into jazzerinas. That's what I call them, my jazzerinas.
Well, I mean, that leads me to my next question because I've got to imagine this was sort of a fun, almost throwback to sort of the days at the National Canadian Ballet and sort of being in the room kind of thing. Because I mean, there was a line early on in the first episode. It's like our dancers are, giving up the toe shoes for TikToks. It felt like a dancer line. Like this
Yeah.
whole show feels like almost a call to sort of let's get back to or enjoying the art of dance.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Yeah. And, yeah, that's kind of what the show is all about, especially like it's, post-pandemic, and the dancers like it. And there were a couple of my New York dancers, I'm not going to name names, that one in particular that is a TikTok person.
Right,
And I just, I like, you know, um, I know I'm not putting it down, but some of the stuff on TikTok, it's so silly.
right.
And these dancers are such brilliant artists. And so for me, it's a joy to put that on the screen, and show people like really like just the genius of ballet dancers.
Can you talk a little bit about, I would imagine the differences of not just choreographing a show or choreographing a number, but it's one thing to stage it, to stage, say, a musical number, but to stage it sort of in the confines of the frame, knowing what the shot's going to be. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the need for, I guess, working with the camera people to know sort of where your dimensions are and where people can move?
Well, here's the thing. This is my fourth show with Amy and Dan. That camera never sits still. It's a constant pas de deux.
Right.
The camera's always moving with the dance. And so for me, because I've been working with these genius Palladinos so long, there's no restrictions, baby. I kind of know, like a lot of times, like Amy and I will talk about the shot. So I'll know how the camera's going to move, and then I can choreograph accordingly. Or I'll create something and I'll shoot it in a Palladino way in the studio and send it forward to them. So I never feel boxed in by frame because the frame just continues to move with us.
Right.
I wish that on every choreographer that works in film that they would have that, because it is the most incredible thing. And it's what Gene Kelly did.
Mm.
Like that's how he captured all of those beautiful. He rehearsed everything with the camera. And so that's what we do. Like it's very well thought out. Jim McConk, our Steadicam guy, running around the room. Sometimes I'm grabbing him and dragging him, going with him. It's my pas de deux and with Amy and Dan. The pas de deux is between the camera and the dancer or the actor who's moving.
I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that.
yeah.
Ask though, like, what made you want to get into choreography, but for film? Because it feels like it's a different beast.
I was a young girl in Buffalo who wanted to be a ballet dancer, and I moved to New York and wasn't quite, I was a great, strong ballet dancer, but that wasn't quite when I got there. I realized, wait, no, this is not my world. And then I thought, oh, well, let me try the Broadway thing. No, that's not me either. And then Debbie Allen hired me for Fame, and she moved me to LA, and I played a ballerina on Fame. But so I started my career really on television.
Oh, love it, love it.
I've been living this. This has been my life. And, I've worked with so many amazing, strong, creative directors. And yeah, so I grew up. That was my schooling, Fame. Like I was on the set of Fame. That was my first training ground.
I love that. And I mean, you've got such an interesting list of credits. I mean, you've done both the stripper movies. I mean, I'll just put it out there. You did. They're both there. They're both very different, but they're both there.
I did. I did. Actually, there's one that's being presented to me right now that's a musical that I hope I can't talk too much about it because I don't think it's completely greenlit, but I
Right.
really want to do this. Yeah, I did. And when I did do those, because they were the first two major feature films that I did, the whisper
Of course.
around LA was she just destroyed her career.
Of course. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then came Austin Powers, and in Austin Powers, I made fun of myself. When Mike Myers strips for the Fenbots, I did the same moves I gave to Demi Moore in Berkeley. So it was just kind of like a tongue in cheek, like, hey, I'm just gonna deliver, well, whatever the job is, I can deliver it. Like
Oh,
I
for sure.
never, I never wanted to be one thing. I wanted to be everything.
No, I'll fully admit, as a bit of a cinema nerd, there's something about dance on screen that I've always found fascinating and really just sort of hypnotic because I absolutely love it. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Pina Bausch and just sort of the stuff that
Oh,
she did.
oh, yeah.
And I mean, I'm curious from your perspective, what is it about sort of movement and dance on screen that just has this tendency to be so damn cinematic when done properly?
It's absolutely magical because in a theater, I don't know, it's just so focused, right? And the artist gets to say, this is exactly what I want you to be looking at. This is what I want you to see. So when it's shot correctly, we're taking you on that journey. Where sometimes in a theater, even for myself, like I start looking around and it's exciting because it's live, but in cinema, it's just there's just something a little bit. It's magical. It's like out of this world, you know.
No, I'm curious, like, is there, especially when you're choreographing and putting stuff together, is there sort of a preference of style, or dare I say even genre? Because obviously with Mrs. Maisel, there's a myriad of different kind of numbers and musical styles and things that are going on. With Etoile, it's subtle variations on the same theme.
Yes,
Like, you
yes.
have like, is at the end of the day, like, what's the more sort of creatively fulfilling for you?
For me, with on Etoile or in general.
In general, I would say.
Um, you know what? That's like the trickiest question for me because then I'll start saying one and then think of the other. For me, it's variety and not doing the same thing all the time. Like I wouldn't want to just do ballet or just do hot jazz or just do I like the variety. Like I always like I've been very lucky in my career that it's just, I'll stay on a journey for a while and then whoop, it takes like a left or a right turn and then I just go with that. I love the variety and I'd like to think that um, there's nothing that I could do like that I can't do. Like I've trained myself in all styles of dance and I'm very curious and I'm always still looking. Um, so yeah, I just wouldn't want to stay in the same box. I like to play in all the different sandboxes of dance.
For sure. No, obviously got to produce all the dance on this, but also at the same time, in watching the show, I was like, okay, that line's from a dancer. That line's from a dancer. Like, were you around enough to be able to throw in the occasional line to sort of give it sort of that extra feel and that extra texture? Because again, this felt very sort of self-effacing from an inside look when it comes to the world of dance.
I mean, the speaking lines that they
Yes,
were,
exactly. Yeah.
that Amy and Dan, they like Amy was a dancer. So
Okay.
she knows this world very, very well. And, sometimes Dan would call me or send me a text and like run something past me to make sure that it was correct. And then I
Right.
would answer him back. But Amy's got it down. Like, shit, this is her dance is her world. She knows it so well.
Now, I'm curious from your perspective because obviously dance has such a huge history in when it comes to TV and cinema. For you as a fan, you mentioned Gene Kelly before, but I mean, is there somebody when you were a younger dancer that you would see sort of on screen that went, damn, I could do that?
There were two people that I watched through my career and I'd still watch Agnes DeMille and Ulysses Dove.
Oh, okay.
And when Amy brought up Ulysses Dove and his name was written in the script, I almost lost my mind. And I called her up and I said, "You don't even know that I have been looking at this man for so long. He was such a genius." And she hadn't seen as many of the numbers that I have on my computer. Like I idolize this guy. Um, and so to hear her discovering him and seeing what a genius he was very exciting for me. So those are the two that I really, and Michael Kidd, of course. I love
Yeah.
Michael Kidd stuff. But Agnes DeMille, when I was a young girl in New York, like just trying to get a job, I remember a special coming on TV about her and her life, and it just rocked me to my core. Like, and I thought, oh my God, I want to be like Agnes DeMille. Like, and I just thought she was way ahead of her time and just such a unique woman. That those were the two greatest influences for me, for sure.
I love that. I love that. And I mean,
And
in what? Let's start. Go ahead.
what, Paul Verhoeven, when I was doing Showgirls,
Yeah.
here's a surprise. He gave me the Catherine wheel from oh my God, why am I blanking? I just blanking on her name. Our Twyla Tharp. He gave me
Wow.
and it's this piece called the Catherine Wheel. And it was in '94 that he handed this to me, and it was on one of those big discs. I can't remember what they're called. I still have it in my
Yeah,
garage.
laser disc. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, it was a laser disc, and it was the Catherine Wheel. And I watched it, and I thought, oh my God, because it was so exciting and so athletic and so powerful that I thought, like, for a stripper movie, like, really? And that's what he was into. And that's when I was like, this is my job for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm always in the camp who will say Showgirls is an epic movie, and you're never going to convince me otherwise. But thank you for your work on that for sure. But just to put a bow on this, and I mean, I'm curious about this because in watching Etoile, it was self-effacing but kind of inviting at the same time, and really giving us sort of a glimpse inside the dancer's room, inside the world of the production, of the highs and lows and the stresses and the excesses and everything else in between. From your perspective, is there anything about sort of the art of choreography, particularly for choreography on the screen, that audiences don't necessarily sort of understand or sort of appreciate, at least at first glance, at first glance?
I guess they don't like, the process. You know,
Right.
they don't know the process. Like, in episode 8, that bar number when they're
Yeah.
dancing bars, um, I did that 4 times to 4 different pieces of music because the music kept changing. You know what I mean? And we were, Amy really wanted to bring some sort of element into it. And at first it was like the Fosse scaffolding we
Yeah.
were going to use. And, Dan was like, no, that's not going to make sense. And so I was just like, we had been shooting at the Châtelet in Paris, and there's always the bars on the side of the stage. And I'm like, well, let's bring those bars out on stage. Let me create a number with them. And then they were going to get really fancy and like automate them on the stage. And I'm like, no. I want the dancers to control everything. So I think it's just the process, you know,
Right.
how we come to, you know, making those decisions. It's always first driven by story. It's got to tell the story, but then how we decide to tell that story. Like I think it would be fun if an audience could like peek into that even more. And that's what I hope we get to like explore. It's just really showing that side of it. You do a little bit when you see Tobias like on stage trying to figure this number out, right? But yeah, it's a trip. It's a thing.
It,
Four versions.
no, that's wild, but I mean, it is such a fun show. Like the minute I got it, I literally basically inhaled it in sort of an afternoon slash evening. I absolutely loved it. But I mean, Marguerite, just congrats on the work, and just honestly, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it, giving us some insight on the show in general and dance.
Thank you so much, David.
You're very welcome. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.